Welcome to Forest Chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we're talking with Luke Deighton about running a business from the road. Luke started running his business remotely about 4 or 5 years ago. Welcome to Forest Chat, Luke.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to a fun and insightful conversation.
Definitely looking forward to it. Luke, you're running a business from the road. What does that look like?
It's a lot of fun, a lot of challenge. So at the start of, November last year, we decided the next logical step for us in what we wanted to build from a branding point of view, a different offerings point of view, was to get on the road and speak with people, build community. We're blessed that all of our projects are online in the online space. And so we were able to do that, and we decided to sell up and take our family on the road. So we've got 2 young boys, my partner. We just decided that why not, while we're young and while the boys are young, go and create some core memories, see the country, see where we can help out across the number of different things we're involved in. And that's now evolved into traveling full-time around Australia, enjoying the sights and having wonderful conversations with people while we're still able to build and grow what we want to grow. So that's a simple version of it. There's a lot of challenge in it. We used to have 5 acres, so it was a big sort of shift to go from 5 acres down into a 22-foot caravan. So lots of challenge in that. The boys are pretty boisterous. They're typical young country boys. I love being outdoors. I love wrestling. I love climbing all over everything. So that's been an interesting dynamic for us, but we've really found a rhythm with it now. And it's nice being home for a couple of weeks for a few different things, but we're definitely itching to get back on the road and keep doing what we're doing.
So you're running a business that is through the internet.
Yeah.
Do you have hard products as a part of your business?
So we have a couple of different brands. So I have my coaching and leadership programs where I do a lot of individual work, teamwork, corporate spaces, do a lot of work in regards to blending some of the energetics and different aspects of creating that are coming into the forefront now, and helping people make that shift from just being focused on the external metrics and bringing that into the intrinsic metrics and allowing that to be the catalyst for growth within their business structures. So we do a lot of work in that space, but we also have the brand Hydration Organics, which is how we met at the weekend. And that's a product-based conscious wellness brand, cacao, coffee alternatives. We do a lot of work in the caffeine addiction space there. So I'm also involved on a men's mental health charity as well. So I work in that men's mental health space, running retreats, workshops, different things like that. So lots of different ways for people to get involved in what we do, and especially being on the road, it brings a great deal of opportunity to connect with people at different levels and then be able to steer them in a certain direction. Or if it's not true for us to work with that person, then just steer them in the direction that's someone we trust and someone that we know, and build that community that way and share some of that energy.
So you've got effectively almost a connection type business. I won't call it a service business necessarily, but it's a connection-based business that requires you to be face-to-face with people at different points in time. And then you've also got a products and services business that you're running it from the road. Yeah. You're not hands on the actual production side.
No, we've now outsourced that and got people that do that for us. And we're just in that relationship game now of like building the wholesale network, building the retail network, having conversations with people, sharing more of what we're doing. And that was one of the reasons we wanted to get on the road, was how do we, in a world that has gone very online and seeing the need for more in-person connection and more just like human-to-human connection, how can we lead in that space? And cool, let's get on the road. And that was the basis of the idea, and it's led to some really cool stuff.
Luke, what does it take you to run that multifaceted business while you're on the road?
A lot of discipline, good boundaries, good structure too. For us, having the boys it's important for me not to lose myself in what we're trying to build in the creation. So we have a vision for Elise and I, which is my partner's name. We have that vision and we work towards that. We check in with it. So every 6 months we check in where we want to go as a family. Where do we want to be in 10 years from a health perspective, a wealth perspective, relationship, as also as individuals, where do we want our growth to be? And we bring that all together and take steps towards that. So there's a lot of respect for that vision, there's a respect for ourselves, and there's a lot of conviction in what we're doing. And I think that's important for us for what it takes to do what we're doing, to have those boundaries to go, if this isn't aligned with what we're doing, we're not going to do it. And it does take a bit to get used to, especially when you're trying to do things for the right reasons. It's easy to overgive and give in a lot of different areas that don't actually take you forward. And so for us, it's been a big shift in that space of really just aligning the output of our energy, sort of our time and our energy, in spaces where we're going to receive what we would love back. And so for me, that creates a beautiful loop of exchange in that space. So there's like transactional stuff there that allows us to keep going. And so we're able to do what most people would say is lots of different things, but we don't do the usual other things in life that are probably just distractions for a lot of people. So we're very focused on where's that energy going? What are we doing? And then we build our structures around that. So for me, I get up early, go to bed a little bit earlier than most, get up nice and early, and then I'm into my day, get what I need to get done. And then we have the middle of the day / afternoon to be as a family and enjoy what we're doing and go out and see things. And that's our ideal day. It doesn't always happen that way, but sometimes you've got more meetings or different things going on across the different brands. But for us, that's a structure that works really well. And then creating time for each other so that we don't get lost in what we're doing. And I think it's really important that we still create space for ourselves to just be and hang out and as individuals and also as a family unit and be able to grow in that space. Because if we didn't, we'd go bloody crazy, especially being on top of each other, as we are sometimes for good solid periods of the time. It's important to create space and be able to get out in nature and get the feet on the ground and chill out a little bit.
And what about the skills of connecting with people and communicating with people? What does it take there?
A mentor of mine once said that the best leadership trait that you can have is to find a connection point with someone and to take, whether it's when you're in your working environment, to remove the work element and just connect at a human level. So find something that you have in common, and that's really stuck with me. Also, the idea of being, for those that we have working with us, to be mates but not best mates, because there still needs to be that level of separation in regards to when you need to have a chat, there's that ability to have a chat. And if we're all best mates, then there can be a little bit of difficulty in that space sometimes. So those two things have been really key for us. And also not trying to do it alone. So having a team, especially remote now, there's so many opportunities to build and bring people in at all different levels throughout the space. So that's a big focus for us, is not trying to do it all alone, because it's just impossible and it's going to fail. And then just having that common space with people that you can talk into. And I think that's one of the beauties of my life has been, whether it's been in non-for-profits, whether it's been sport, whether it's been in the mining industry where I started, it's been, I can relate to people at many different levels and have a conversation that still moves towards the greater picture of what we're trying to build, regardless of the starting point.
So you're bringing a lot of different things together in all of that, to make it work for you, but also to engage with others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important that even within our coaching models and when we do work with individuals, we don't just have one modality, so to speak. We bring a lot of different modalities and I guess intuitively pick the path forward based on that person's upbringing, their conditioning, what beliefs they hold, all of the different things in those aspects. And same for the cacao brand and the men's work. I think it's important to understand that we're all on an individual journey and we're not always going to see the same information or receive the same piece of information in the same way. And so are you able to shift that and relate it in a way that's going to resonate with that person? I think that's a big part of what we're doing, to be able to make it more accessible, but also not dilute the message that we're trying to bring and the impact that we're trying to have as well.
So what would you say are your strengths that you have to do this?
I'm very grounded. I bring a very calm energy, and that's been a big journey of mine. That wasn't always a functional relationship with. So when my parents divorced, I very much put the walls up, just closed off. And I held space for everyone else really well and allowed everyone else to feel safe. But internally, I was just an absolute wreck, right? So I got very good at putting up walls and putting up masks. And that was a follow-on from my sporting days where I would have coaches. I was a point guard, played high-level basketball. And like my coaches would say, being the point guard, the team runs through your emotion. So you can't show emotion. And so because we had success, I linked success with no emotion. And so served me very well in a corporate sense because it was just like put the emotion to the side, get what you got to get done. Same thing when my parents divorced. It was put the emotion to the side, just be where you got to be at. And that still serves me very well with clients and in the energy that we bring now. But I just create space for me to feel what I need to feel outside of that. So I don't suppress the emotion, because when we do that, it's like a champagne bottle. You're just like shaking it, and eventually it just pops. And it usually pops in the place that you least want it, because I guess, from a lesson point of view, if we feel the embarrassment, then we can embody it and we feel it, and we don't want to make that again. So we make the change. Where before I would just suppress, and that impacted my relationships. It impacted the way in which I felt like I was showing up in places. And now I can see that you've got to create the space for both. And so that's been a skill where being able to take the time out and really slow down and be able to see the bigger picture is really one of my traits of being able to hold people through that resistance, hold people through the chaos that can come through life, and hold them in that vision, and then allow them to just work through what they need to work through. So that grounded energy, I have a lot of conviction, very respectful of myself and others. I think they all really hold us in good stead for what we're trying to create.
We've had a look at what it takes, Luke, to run a business from the road. We'll have a break, and after the break, we'll talk about what it means. We've heard what it takes, Luke, to run a business from the road. Now, let's have a look at what it means. Luke, what does it mean to you, your family, or the community that you're able to run your business from the road?
Yeah, family is such a big thing for us, and to be able to do what we do whilst not missing out as much of our boys' lives and each other, I think is super important. And coming from that mining industry where it is, you're doing long nights, long days, you don't get to be as present. It's been such a big shift for us. And for me, the moment Eli, our firstborn, was born, my mind switched from, okay, what can I get from the world to what can I give to the world? And that shifted very quickly from creating to receive status, money, financial success, all of those sort of things that as a young person I was conditioned to think was the way to feel fulfillment in my life. It very quickly shifted to legacy. And what kind of a world am I building? And we sat down and asked ourselves, and it was around COVID times, and we just asked ourselves, what kind of a world are we creating or we being a part of? Are we happy with the direction that world's going? And the answer was no. And then we sat back and said, well, do we think that there's people out there looking to change that? And the answer was yes. And then we asked, what are we going to do about it? And that sort of led to us leaving what we were doing and putting all of the skills and different pathways together and going, this is what we're going to do about it. And that's slowly but surely led to what we're doing now. And it's always been, what kind of a legacy am I building? What kind of a leader of my family and myself am I becoming? And what's the vision of that I would love to bring into the world, and just let the rest of it take care of itself from there. And also from a legacy point of view, I want my lineage to know, like 20 generations from now, that I was making choices here in the moment with them in mind as well. And so everything that we do in that space is taking us towards that.
So you've got a clearly defined view of what you'd like to create in the world, and then you're out there doing it. But it means a lot because you're actually able to go out and do that. You've found a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that not a lot of people get the opportunity to take that step either. It's been a choice that we've had to make, of regardless of the financial side of things, especially starting out. It was like, we're going to drop a bit here for sure, but we're going to gain so much more. And it was really making the change from putting focus on the financial aspect or looking at everything as what's going to create some money to what's actually going to build real wealth. And not just from a monetary sense, but from a happiness sense, a joy, a connectivity sense, all of those other energies that are there and that make up who we are. That was really key for us. And we've been blessed to get those opportunities. And I'm really grateful for all my time in the mining industry because it allowed us to get set up. I was on 180K a year from 22. And yeah, I sacrificed a lot to do that. I missed parties, I missed holidays, I missed once in a lifetime trips with my friends who went off to Canada and did all those things. But I was very intent on what I was doing. Now I've just shifted that intention, and I'm a big believer of just, life's very simple. You just have a vision, take steps towards it, and when you take a misstep, you just dive into the why, learn a little bit more about yourself, why you didn't take that step, integrate that, and then just keep stepping down that path and towards where you want to go. So we have that 10-year vision, and then we just break it down and reverse engineer it from there. 5 years, 3 years, 1 year. What's that look like in 3 months? What's that look like in a year? So when we were having that conversation, sort of maybe September, October last year, what's that look like in 6 months? I don't think we're in this house anymore. I think we're on the road connecting with people. All right, cool. Let's make that step. What's that next step? Let's do what we've got to do, get the house on the market and start making those steps. And it's led to us to here. And it serves us really well, that model of just being in constant reflection with that vision as well, and making sure that as we learn more about ourselves, learn more about the world, meet new people, it's like, okay, cool. Is this still where we're going? And we often find that it is. It's just we get a little bit more specific about how we get there. And so we just get a little bit more clarity on what the next steps look like and go from there.
So when you think about the community that you have gone out from where you were into, what difference is it making for the community?
I see a lot of hope in people's eyes when we talk about what we're doing. And I feel a lot of hope when I have conversations with people too. It's easy when we're caught up in the hustle of just modern day life, trying to survive, pay your bills, do all those sort of things. It's very easy to get very the blinkers on in that space and not be able to pull yourself out of it and see some of the changes. And so getting out in the community, I think, has given us a lot of hope about there's so many people out there just trying to play their part and play their role in the way that they feel is the right thing to do. I think that's really cool. And for us to be able to have those conversations with people and just share someone's story or just give them a little bit of motivation to take those steps to really go all in on themselves. Because I think that's, for me, what we're all here to do, is to find that unique skill or set of skills that we have, what that genius is and what our purpose is, and then bring that into the world. And do that from a place where we're not so caught up on the things that put us into survival mode or the fear-based and getting caught up in those aspects of modern day society, which is very easy to do. It's very easy to get caught up in the fear response of that. So I think for us, in regards to community, just bringing more people together, having more conversations, showing that there's opportunities for collaboration, there's opportunities for joint ventures, all different things in those spaces. That's been pretty cool to be a part of that.
Just come back to where you talked about the fear. Where do you see the fear being pushed into society?
I think they're just natural byproducts of leadership within this country point of view. We talk about cost of living, we talk about a number of different things. They create that fear response in people. It really kicks people into survival. When we're in survival mode, it's very hard to see a different pathway. It's very hard to just get outside of Maslow's 6 basic human needs, for example. But it's so key to be able to try and do that and see that there are other pathways, that you might not necessarily have to keep showing up in that space and keep doing those things. We've been very keen to really just understand who we are as individuals and to live a life that's dictated to by us and not by others. And for a long time, we lived the other aspect of that, where we were dictated to. And it wasn't always in that dictatorship sense, but we were very much living a life that was what we were being told we were supposed to do. Get the good job, go to school, do all those sort of things, climb the ladder, so to speak, get the toys, get the golden handcuffs on, and then just do that for the next 30 years. But stepping outside of that has been really cool.
And what do you see as the golden handcuffs?
Like your mortgages, getting the bigger house. There's a great analogy with it of we're all in a cage, so to speak, and then there's a little bit of cheese on the other side of that cage, and you got to do this and this to get that piece of cheese. And you get in there and you're like, cool, this is sweet. I've got this bigger area. I've got a new boat or a new car, or I'm getting invited to fancy events or whatever it might be for you, whatever that status piece is. And then you just work out that, it's just a larger cage. And now I'm stuck here. And when we start to think from that place of survival, we're worried about finances. We're worried about how we're going to pay the bills. We're worried about all those things. Versus the other side of that, and just that trusting that everything's going to be okay, and trusting that if I'm living in alignment with myself, I'm connected to whatever my purpose is, that'll all sort itself out and that'll all play its way. And so I see it a lot, especially in the mining industry. There's a lot of guys that are leveraged to their eyeballs, right? And it's only getting tougher and tougher to try and meet those expectations. And for us, we had to let go of that part of us that wanted to play that game because it was there. I used to own a number of shares in racehorses, and I thought for a while that I wanted to go down the breeding path. But when I stepped back, it was just a status thing. I loved the ego stroke when someone would say, "Oh, you must be going all right to be able to afford all this." It was very egoic for me. It was very based on external metrics, but that's what I was taught to. That's what I grew up chasing. So I grew up looking, that's what success looked like. And it wasn't until I got there and went, it doesn't really feel that good. There's got to be more to it than this. And started to realize why I was doing it. I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it to try and appease other people and to fit in. And once I started to realize that, and I started to come back inside and go, oh, what do I actually want? What are my values? What are my standards? What do I want to stand for? What do I want to live for? Things really quickly shifted. And now we're doing that, and abundance is not a problem. It just works its way to us, and it's a magical place to be in, really.
That's great to hear. And how does that work with your family?
Yeah, cool. So again, we have that family vision of how we want to raise our boys, what do we want their education to look like, or how we would love that to be, what are the values that we would love them to uphold in life. And that's been one of the beauties of being on the road, is they're so much more confident, they're so much more outgoing, they're so much more able to hold a conversation, willing to go make friends. But they also are growing up into incredible young boys. And it's easy to doubt yourself sometimes. There's moments where they might say, I want to go home, or I miss Nan, or I miss Pop, or whatever it is, and you go, are we doing the right thing? And then the other week, Eli wasn't even 4 yet, and he was at the park and he saw an elderly man walking across the park with stuff in his hand, and he just stood there and held the gate open for him. And I was like, okay, we're doing the right thing. If a not even 4-year-old can take the time away from the park to hold that gate open, say you're welcome, and then close the gate behind that elderly gentleman, when he's never been told, he's never been asked to do it, he's probably seen it, but never been specifically told that you hold the door open for elderly gentlemen. And for him to do that on his own accord, I was like, cool, we're doing the right thing, we're leading in the right way, and we're not always going to get okay, but we also want them to grow up and be their own individuals as well. So we just trust that if we hold that vision, and then when they're old enough to say, have a little bit of a say in that vision as well, we give them the reins to speak into who they want to become and where they would like to go, and we'll support them in that every step of the way. And so for us, it's just constantly showing up in those values, those standards, and being prepared to stand against the opposite of those and not tolerate that, and show up in the way that we want to show up. It's super important for me. I think it shows in the way that they are, and in the way we are, and as a family dynamic as well.
It's amazing to see the understanding of how things work well from a 4-year-old. That is incredible.
Yeah, I had a tear in the eye. I was like, both of my grandfathers have passed now, and I was like, they would have been so proud to see that. And that's the way we communicated that to him too. It wasn't, we're mindful of saying, you should feel this. Like, I was just like, I was so proud of you, mate, when you did this. And not tell him how to be, and just let him, if he wants to feel pride over it, let him, rather than say you should feel pride over it. That's a big thing for us. We'll just embody how it feels for us, and then he can work it out how it feels for him. But even that night, he was like, oh, I was really proud that I did that, Dad. And I was like, yeah, mate, it was good to see. So he hasn't done it again since, but it's like, just it's there, and it's really, really cool to see.
Absolutely. And you hear all the time when people talk to people about what they've done, and they say, you should be proud. And I always think, no, you can be proud rather than you should be proud.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because then we're just projecting our own stuff onto them. It's the same across anything. It's like when we're in the coaching space, it's like, I'm speaking in from my lived experience, my journey. This is how I would do it, or this is how I would feel in that situation because of this and this, and then just let the person come to their own conclusion, or find their own path with it, rather than say you should do this or you can do this, or you could do this. It's like, this is how I would do it. This is how I would see it. And then let them go on their own journey with it.
We want people to be themselves, not to be dictated to. And that's a big change in thinking, and especially a change in way that you need to put your message across to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big believer that we're all the predominant creative force in our life, good, bad and ugly. That's a scary proposition to think about. All of the bad stuff in your life, or the ugly stuff that in you some way or shape or form have created that. But it's also a really powerful, empowering space to be of like, if I've created that, then I can create something different. It's just a result of the choices that I've made. And so I can choose to do something different. I can choose to let the past go. I can choose to let that version of me go. And from this moment forward, I can choose to do this. And that's okay too. And I think that's a big part of what we're doing, and a big part of, from a community aspect, just reminding people that they are the power when it comes to their own life. They are the authority. There's only really, in my opinion, two authorities above man, so to speak, and that's God or nature, whichever way you want to, or the universe, whichever way you want to label that higher power. Then it's us, and we're the authority on that space, and we get to choose the way in which we show up in the world. And sure, sometimes that might lead to a little bit of conflict in regards to maybe an authority figure or someone that believes something different. But the more that you can stay true to who you are, the more you can stay solid in those convictions and those values and those standards that you want to live, the more empowered you start to feel within life, and the more you start to make choices that do align you with your purpose, that do move you towards who you're actually here to be. And I'm a big believer that's just remembering that power that lies within. And the more we do that, the more beautiful life becomes.
It's interesting to note that point that you have what you believe is right, but then you have this, it came across as a negative authority figure type perspective, because authority tends to create clashes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Again, it's how you relate to it as well. And there's laws and all things that come into it, and legislations and governments and all of these sort of aspects as well. But again, I believe that we have the power to choose what we step into in those spaces as well, and that no other man or no other corporation can tell you how to use your most valuable asset, which is your lifetime. You know, it's the most valuable asset on the planet, and I see more and more people who are realising that, especially over the last probably 5, if not 3 years. So many more people are realising that their lifetime is their most valuable asset, and they're going to spend it in the places that feel good for them and that resonate with them. And that's really encouraging to see, because I wholeheartedly believe that. It's the one thing that if it stopped tomorrow, there'd be nothing else going on. The money might fall down, but we'd still be here. We'd still be doing it. We'd still be going through and trying to make something else work. And so lifetime is the greatest currency on this planet. And we have a mantra or an idea that we like to sit with from time to time. And it's that if you could imagine that your life is a movie, and that you get a finite amount of film to put on that movie, but at the end of your life, you get to share that with every single person that you've had contact with, whether it's us here, having a conversation, a mentor, a family member, someone that you just nodded at and walked in past the street. What would you love to show them on that movie? And we let that, in a lot of senses, be the guide for where we put our time and where we put our energy. You know, just that little check-in of, if we hold that idea, how do we act in this space? Where do we show up tomorrow? If I fully trusted myself, what would I be doing? And that leads to some pretty cool conversations. It leads to some pretty cool things. And it doesn't leave much time for distraction, really.
Yeah, mucking around with other people's interests.
Exactly, yeah. Which is often where we get caught up in it. We spend so much time looking at what our neighbour's doing rather than looking at what's coming at us, that we just bury the head in the sand a little bit. So it's, when you have that view on life and that perspective, yeah, you've still got to pay your bills. Yeah, you've still got to do all those things. You've got to provide and you've got to do all that. But there are ways to do that are very different to what we've been taught. And if we can stop looking at what someone else is doing and just worry about what we're doing, then it starts to shift in that way and starts to work itself out around you.
We've heard what it means to Luke that he's able to run a business from the road. Although it sounds like we've got a long way away from that. We'll have a break now, and after the break, we'll have a look at how you do it. We've heard what it means for Luke to run a business from the road. Now, let's have a look at how you do it. Luke, how do you run your business from the road?
A lot of discipline. We've got a really good team. We've got VAs, we've got people that do the production, the packaging for us in the hydration sense now. We've got social media teams and those kind of things as well. But for me, it's not possible without the support of Elise. If she's not clued into the vision, and again, coming back to that vision and that structure of, okay, this is how we're going to do this is how we're going to do this, is all guiding us towards that space. And that wouldn't be possible without that. Great systems, great structures, understanding who we're talking to, where we're trying to get them, what do they need to hear. If I reflect on my journey in those spaces when I was in those moments, what do I need to hear? What did I need to see? What did I need to feel in order to move to the next step, where I was willing to take another step forward, where I was willing to get out of that space? So that's like that reverse engineering framework is relevant across all of our different brands. And we're very connected to nature, so we're very ritualistic in the way that we operate. So as we're coming into winter here, even though we're about to head up north, energetically we're into winter. And so for us, that means a lot less external stuff, a lot more internal, really going the depths of who we are, what we're building, where we're going, so that we can come back out when the season calls for spring. So we live very much in a connection to nature, and nature plays a big role in our frameworks and our ecosystems. So ecosystem being one of those bigger lessons from nature and giving back more than we receive. So we have that mantra and we build those within our business structures as well. And that, for me, keeps us in alignment with our natural rhythm, and not just the external nature, but the inherent nature within. So from a how do we do it point of view, it's those systems and those structures that work really well for us. And then just leaning on team, trying not to do it all ourselves, and making sure that we are constantly checking in with where we're at and where we're going forward, and being prepared to pivot and change if we have to. I think that's probably something that serves us really well in that space of not being so rigid in this is who we are, this is what we're doing, this is how we think we should show up, being able to adapt and change as we receive new information and as we learn more about ourselves. And I think that's, from a business point of view, I see a lot of people create big things and then not be able to let go of them because of who they've created that identity around that offering. And so just trying to shift that a little bit and show people that they can change, they can shift, they can be a little bit more rhythmical in the way in which they operate and create a little bit more space and not have to be on all of the time too. So, yeah, that's how we do it.
It's interesting how you talk about winter and looking to the inside, and then summer being more externally focused, I guess, is probably how you're thinking. That ebb and flow, that seems to be a really comfortable way to actually approach it.
Yeah, if you think about it from like a rhythm point of view, like what that rhythm feels like for me, like a resonance, so what my truth is in that space, and then like a return to purpose, a return to self, that sort of creating that space for that. Our heritage is Celtic, and so the Celts had a great connection with nature in the way in which they created a great respect for the wisdom of the land, and the way in which that all played out, not just from a physical sense, but from a spiritual and an energetical sense as well. So we bring that into the way in which we operate. There's the pagan wheel of the year as well, which is very much around the harvest seasons, and you can then shift that metaphorically into the internal, into the person as well. And if you think about that from winter into spring, we're really turning up the fields internally so that we can plant new seeds for spring, so that in summer we're in that full bloom and we're in that expressive space again, and we're out interacting with people. And when we get to in sync with that at a very high level within our offerings, within our structures, things flow a lot more easily because the people that we're talking to are in those seasons as well. So for me, I don't see any point right now promoting like it's coming into winter, you're going to get out and do like 500 push-ups and fix your external image. Let's shift that, come into winter, let's reflect on the internal, what's actually showing up there that's stopping you from doing that all the time anyway, and dive into the internal sense. And in my opinion, like the internal world is reflected to us in the external world. So if we get into creating, and those phrases, your focus creates your reality, and where your energy goes, your focus flows, and those sort of terms, it very much leads into what's going on internally regardless of whether it's business-wise, relationship-wise, the way in which you see yourself in the mirror, it's coming from the internal. And so if we can just take a moment to create some space to connect back in with ourselves in that rhythm, then we can see things in a slightly different perspective, start to understand where that thought, where that limiting belief, where that identity might come from, and start to shift. And it's usually our attachment to our identity or who we think we are, which is our limitation to our growth. And so if we can shift that perspective too, all of a sudden we start to just look at the world in a different lens, so to speak.
That connection to how you view yourself runs through everything. And if you aren't in a strong place with that, or you're not in a place that rings with your purpose, then it falls apart pretty quickly because you just can't hold all of that stuff that's fallen off the tree.
Yeah, absolutely. I can reflect on that in my journey where I was wearing those masks. It's so tiring not showing up as yourself. Trying to live two versions of you is so tiring. There's one for work, there's one for your relationship, there's one for being a parent, there's one for these conversations. It's bugger that. Let's just show up in the same values, the same standards across the board. And if that's true for us, and make sure that's coming from a place of truth and not coming from a place of fear or any of those negative concepts or constructs, then we have faith and have trust that that'll serve us in the way it's supposed to serve us. Doesn't always mean it's what we want, but often it's exactly what we need, right?
Thank you very much, Luke, for being on Forest.chat. It's been fascinating chatting to you about how you run your business from the road. And all Forest.chat listeners wish you all the best with your future endeavours, including your trip north.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us on as we get around the country. And if anyone wants to reach out and for coming to a place near you, please do reach out. Always down to chat and always down to have a conversation just like this or just like anything, and have some fun along the way. So yeah, big love to you, mate, and big love to your community, and thanks for having us on.
Thank you. You've been listening to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we've been talking with Luke Deighton about running a business from the road. Remember, there are 4 ways to get involved with Forest.chat. Go to Forest.chat to subscribe to the emails. You'll get emails telling you about episode announcements. If you want to listen to the episodes, go to forest.chat/episodes. If you do something interesting, book an interview at forest.chat/interview. If you want to support a small business, book an advert at forest.chat/advert. I'm looking forward to joining you with our next guest. Until then, enjoy making it happen.